we need to wake up to the fact that the Chinese Navy is now larger than ours. They are launching more into space than the rest of the world combined, including the United States. They have a rapid nuclear buildup. The Chinese Communist Party is preparing to be the dominant world superpower in the next decade. And the irony of it all, the sad thing of it all, is that they're doing it with our money, with U.S. taxpayer dollars. Between the COVID stimulus that's flowing into Chinese manufacturing, between the trade deficit of $500 billion a year, and particularly with Wall Street and so many woke U.S. corporations that want to protest voting integrity reforms in places like Georgia and Texas, but yet want to turn a blind eye to Chinese human rights abuses that are just far worse and are egregious. Far worse than anything the world has seen, yet we're flowing billions right into Beijing's stock market, their economy, and fueling their military buildup that our future soldiers and sailors and airmen may have to fight against.
Right. And, you know, Congressman, Biden and the Chinese president, they're scheduled to hold a virtual summit next week. Do you expect Biden to bring any of this up? I mean, what's your expectation for that meeting?
No, I don't expect him to bring it up. I expect to see Biden address Xi just like he's addressing the Ayatollahs in Iran or the Taliban, that if we can just be nice enough, if we can concede enough and appease enough, that maybe they'll change their behavior. But we all know how dictators and tyrants and terrorists respond to that. They see weakness. They smell weakness in this White House, and they will continue to push. And that is incredibly dangerous for the United States, but also for the world.
And Congressman, you know, we've talked at length about the catastrophe in exiting Afghanistan, and those effects of Biden's rushed withdrawal, they're still being felt to this day, and China is really capitalizing on that. Just this week, Beijing reopened trade with Afghanistan. They are urging more countries to send aid to the terrorists. And now former President Trump is warning that China could take the Bagram Air Base. Do you share that concern as well?
Oh, absolutely. I wrote op-eds about that. I've spoken about it. Giving up Bagram was a strategic disaster. It's just a few hundred miles from the Chinese border, 12,000-foot runways right in their backyard. So, you know, can you imagine if China had a strategic airbase in Mexico that they had spent 20 years developing? Do you think they would have given it up for free? Of course not. But, you know, these clueless cabinet that's sitting around Biden, including himself, did exactly that. And again, if we ever do have to come to some kind of conflict over Taiwan, over threatening Japan, shutting off trade routes, or some other Chinese aggression, gee, it would have been a great thing to have an air base sandwiched between China, Russia, and Iran that we had invested billions into, and it literally just gave it up for free.
And Congressman, I want to ask you about this. This story didn't get a lot of press because it happened kind of during Election Day and got buried with that news. But the Pentagon found that the retaliatory August drone strike that killed children and a U.S.-linked worker was regrettable. They said it was plagued by execution errors. It was not the result, however, of misconduct or negligence. What was your reaction to that?
Well, you know, I'm on the Armed Services Committee with oversight of the Defense Department. I want to see those findings. I want to see that report and that investigation, exactly how it was conducted, because I can tell you, having been a Green Beret that's personally called in dozens of drone strikes and how they're and how those operate, you have to have assets on the ground. You have to corroborate and verify what that drone operator is seeing, either through signals intelligence or human intelligence. Or other means. And the fact that we could do none of that because of Biden's disastrous policy, I think, coupled with pressure for him to look tough in response to the suicide bombing, very likely could have led to a rush strike without following all of the protocols. So I will be demanding to see that report from an oversight perspective.
And Congressman, before we let you go, Veterans Day is on this Thursday, with you being the first Green Beret to serve in Congress. So we just wanted to hear your message ahead of this Veterans Day.
Well, you know, as always, I thank all of my brothers and sisters that stood up and were willing to die for that flag and our values and their fellow citizens. But I have to tell you, this is a particularly sad Veterans Day for me. This debacle in Afghanistan, this absolute betrayal of our allies, and the most un-American thing of leaving fellow Americans behind and letting terrorists dictate the terms has hit the community incredibly hard. There's an 81% increase in calls to the VA's suicide chat line. I don't think the academics sitting around Biden have a clue what their complete surrender and walk away has done to our veterans community. Many of them have quit their jobs, exhausted their savings, and they're still not giving up to get their allies out.
Well, our prayers are certainly with them. And Congressman Michael Waltz, we thank you as always for your service, and thanks for being with us tonight.